Qui a Jerez ci sono tantissime cantine ovviamente dedicate allo sherry, essendo la patria dello sherry. Jerez, proprio la parola, significa sherry, e tantissime di queste sono grandi, commerciali. Insomma, c'è per esempio Tio Pepe, che è la più grande cantina di sherry, il più grande produttore di sherry al mondo, ma io ho scelto di visitarne una un po' particolare, si chiama Bodegas Tradicion, e ora iniziamo la visita. Sei pronto a fare sherry breakfast?
Very ready.
Welcome everybody to Bodegas Tradicion.
Thank you.
My name is Laura too, and I'm going to be guiding your visit today. So, it was founded in 1998, and his founder was Joaquin Rivero. Bodegas Tradicion philosophy is that we produce very old wines with the certifications VOS and VORS. VOS, what does it mean? Vinum Optimum Signatum, or with the same letters in English, very old sherry.
Okay.
Very handy, right?
Mm-hmm.
It means that the wine has a minimum age of 20 years on average. And VORS, Vinum Optimum Rare Signatum, or very old rare sherry, the wine has a minimum age of 30 years on average. Fresh and cool because it comes from the Atlantic Ocean. Levante, dry and hot because it comes from the desert. Which wind you think that we need for the aging of our wine?
The cool one.
The cool one? The one coming from the Atlantic Ocean?
Mm.
Yeah? You agree on that too? Yeah? And you are absolutely right.
Okay.
For that reason, the wineries are always built facing southwest. With these windows, we welcome el viento de poniente, and with these ones closed, we leave behind el viento de levante. The VRS and VOS ones. We're gonna talk about them more in detail during the wine tasting with every single one of the wines. But did you realize when I was talking about the age of the wine, I mentioned that the wine has certain age on average?
Mm-hmm.
And this is just because sherry wine will never have a fixed age. Why? Because it's always in a dynamic system, getting mixed. The old one with the young one and the young one with the old one. But we will also talk about that later on when we talk about the criaderas and soleras system. Jerez, the very original one given by the Phoenicians together with the wine 3,000 years ago, and sherry, that's the English translation. Do you know where does the term sherry come from? Have you realized that actually Jerez is called Jerez de la Frontera, right? Yes. And we have some other places that they have de la Frontera in their name, yes, such as Arcos, Conil, Chiclana, and some others. De la Frontera means on the border. Mm-hmm. On the border with, we have an Arab kingdom here in Spain that lasted 7 centuries overall. It started on 711 and it finished on 1492. But this region here was reconquered after 5 centuries. Then for the remaining 2 centuries, all these places, they stay on the border with the very last Arab kingdom that it was El Reino de Granada. So the Arab name of Jerez during these 5 centuries was Sherish. And sherry actually comes from the Arab name of Jerez. These 7,000 hectares, we could find it in the whole region. But until last year, actually not last year, 2021, the controlling authorities, they changed their mind, and now they have included in the list 6 new places. Trebujena, Lebrija, Chipiona, Rota, Puerto Real, and Chiclana. So now all these guys are entitled to get the denominación de origen. Okay. And what's one of the arguments? Why do they all have in common? Now we're gonna talk about the soil. 30 million years ago, Andalusia was covered in water. And the Albariza is coming from that inner sea. For that reason, when it rains, it acts like a sponge. And It absorbs all the water and it retains it. And then it gives all the humidity that the vineyard needs little by little. It's actually prohibited to water the vineyard. What the albarita has gathered during the rainy days should be enough. If they are white grapes, the theory says that sherry wine is white wine. That's what the theory says, because it's coming from a white grape. Have you ever tasted Pedro Jimenez wine? Not yet, but soon. Pedro Jimenez is super dark, super dark, but it's coming from a white grape. So what's going on? These grapes, before we take them into the press, they go through a process that is called asoleo. We let the sun dry the grape, more or less for a week. It depends how hard the sun is shining that week. At night, very important, we cover the grapes, because this is happening in the production area, on top of those seagrass mats. At night, we cover them so they don't get moisture, and the following day we start again. The fino has less than 1 gram of sugar per liter, one of the driest wines in the world. No wonder that English people, our main client in the past, still is nowadays abroad, said to us, Pedro Jimenez, too sweet. The rest of your wines, too dry. Mix them for us. And that's how we got to the cream sherry. Because how come we have an English name for a wine that we produce here? And it's just because it's coming after England wishes. About what is happening after the harvest. So after the harvest, we take the grapes into the press and we get a grape juice, right? This grape juice goes into fermentation and becomes some young wine. So this young wine at this stage has a concentration of alcohol of 12 degrees. The wine master is gonna taste this young wine, and those samples that he finds are quite fine, quite pale. He says, this is going to be a fino. And he makes one stick that does the symbol that identifies fino. He tastes some other samples of this young wine that they're not that fine anymore, not that pale anymore, are more structured, more full body. And this wine master says, this is going to be an oloroso. And he makes 2 sticks that are the symbol of the oloroso. So what do we do with this young wine that at the end, these samples end up being either fino or oloroso? For that, we need to take into account that when the grape juice is fermentating, contains some yeast. This is the yeast that we want to activate, to develop, to create our famous velo de flor. This is a veil of yeast. But for that to happen, we need to fortify the wine. Fortify means we add alcohol to it. From 12 degrees up to 15. Why 15? Because 15 is the perfect atmosphere for the yeast to develop. And also we have to take into account that the yeast is a big eater and it consumes everything it finds along this way. Sugar, alcohol, glycerin, and oxygen. So having said that the yeast consumes the oxygen, once it has consumed the one in the liquid, goes to the surface searching for more, and that's the reason why we have this veil of yeast. This is what we call biological aging, and that's the one needed for fino. Now, for oloroso, we fortify this young wine from 12 degrees up to 17 or 18. Why 17 or 18? Because after 15, the yeast can no longer live and dies the drum. And now the aging takes place in contact with the oxygen in the cask. This is what we call oxidative aging, and that's the one needed for oloroso. Now, amontillado, the general rule says minimum 3 years under the yeast and then 3 years in oxidative aging. That's what the general rule says. Here in Bodegas Tradicion, we do it 10 years under the yeast and more than 30 years in oxidative aging. Our amontillado is older than 40 years old and really, really nice. You will see in the wine tasting. Those wines that they require biological aging, let's say fino, before they get into this dynamic system that is called criaderas and soleras that we're going to talk about in a minute, they require a period of time called sobretablas, and it lasts 1 year. What do we do within this year? We need to observe this yeast, because sometimes the yeast does not want to cooperate, and it's going to end up dying before the end of that first year. Another drama. So that's the reason why we're saying that palo cortado is happening by accident. because we were expecting to have a fino, but it just the yeast did not want to be a fino. What was the symbol of the fino? A stick was the Spanish word for stick. Palo. Since it's no longer a fino, it's a cut stick. It's un palo cortado. A row of casks next to the floor, next to the ground. And the Spanish word for floor is suelo. So solera comes from suelo. Then we have first criadera, second criadera, third, fourth, fifth, and sixth. But we only take the wine out from la solera twice a year, in spring and in autumn, and never more than 40%. So if we're taking 20% out in spring, we cannot take more than 20% out in autumn. 15, 25, it depends on our client's demand. We can take the wine out from above. So in order to do that, we need a pump. So this pump goes inside the cask. And how does it activate? Like when people steal petrol from a car, yeah? But this is a lot more fun. So the pump goes inside the cask, suck a little bit, and then it comes out and it goes inside the carafe. The carafe holds 1 arroba. Do you remember how many
16.
liters?
16 liters.
Very good, you all got entitled to the wine tasting. So now the wine from the carafe goes into la canoa here. But before that, we need to take into account our veil of yeast that we cannot disturb. So el trasiego, this is the general movement. El trasiego consists of la saca, that's when we take the wine out, and el rocío, that's when we put it into the next cask. Why am I saying this? Because this tool here is called el rociador. It goes inside the cask, as you can see, it has a stopper here, so it connects to la canoa, and now we're gonna pour the wine, because then the wine is gonna come out thanks to these little holes quite gently, quite calmly, while the veil of yeast stays almost intact at the surface. La Venezia, like the city in Italy, but with an N.
Exactly.
So it goes through the veil of yeast, and he will be taking the wine from middle part, and he will leave the veil of yeast at the surface. And it also had to be quite flexible. In the past, they used to do it with the whiskers of the whales. Right? We put it inside the cask, and whenever we get the mark, we will know how many arrobas we have in our cask. Here we are seeing that there are 22 units, and the arrows are pointing in what direction we are finding these 22 units of the fifth criadera of Amontillado. So, this way and that way. So when we count on the second row, they're gonna be 18. And then on the third, 19, 20, 21, and 22. Here we get a message that it says that this is the end of the fifth criadera of Amontillado. So this is how we know to which criadera belongs each single cask. Get rid of that. I was thinking, I think they're 3 years old too late, but let's see.
Mold is okay.
Yeah. Because it's really well needed for the yeast.
And why they want to get rid of it?
Because they are saying due to the health.
Allora, la guida ci ha appena raccontato dell'unità di misura che leggiamo sulle botti di sherry. Vedete qui che c'è questo numerino che dice 38 e una specie di chiocciola che in realtà è il simbolo dell'unità di misura che si chiama arroba. E ci ha spiegato che una arroba è 16,6 litri, quindi praticamente dentro questa botte ci sono 38 per 16,6 litri, che è praticamente circa 600 litri per botte. Però perché è importante avere questo numero? Perché sappiamo benissimo che lo sherry, perché ce l'hanno spiegato, funziona con un sistema di travasi di solera, quindi si prende sempre, si spilla lo sherry pronto da bere dall'ultima, che è solera, e si chiama così perché è vicino al pavimento, ma si rabbocca poi il liquido partendo dalla fila più in alto e scendendo. Quindi loro devono assolutamente sapere quanto sherry c'è all'interno di ogni botte prima, dopo e durante i travasi. E infatti se vieni a vedere, forse non, sì, su questa botte si vede, di lato riportano un numerino diverso, forse si vede meglio dalle altre, che indica la differenza tra il full della botte, che ha una capacità di 38, e quello che in realtà c'è dentro davvero, perché ogni volta durante i travasi la quantità è diversa e viene sempre lasciato un quinto della botte vuoto per permettere l'ossidazione, per permettere al floor, al pavimento diciamo di lieviti, di continuare a esistere e di dare sapore allo sherry. Una cosa interessantissima che ci ha spiegato la guida è che gli sherry non hanno vintage, infatti sulle bottiglie di sherry non leggete l'anno, l'annata, proprio perché visto questo sistema di travasi è impossibile stabilire effettivamente l'età, cioè quanti anni ha lo sherry finale, cioè quello che viene spillato dalla solera. Però questa bodega, in particolare Bodegas Tradicion, è una delle poche che riesce a vendere sherry invecchiati, quindi leggiamo 40 anni, 30 anni eccetera. E come fanno? Siccome non c'è un sistema diciamo per stabilirlo, prendono il loro sherry, lo mandano a un laboratorio che attraverso le analisi proprio al carbonio riesce a stabilire l'età dello sherry e a certificarla, quindi le 28.000 bottiglie che producono qui sono anche molto rare proprio perché hanno una certificazione scientifica dell'età dello sherry, ed è una cosa che non succede nelle altre cantine, quindi è una rarità.
Vino. We're going from the driest to the sweetest, from the palest to the darkest. So, have you ever tasted vino before?
Yes.
What was the color? Was it like this one or was it paler by any chance?
Paler.
Paler. When we talk about fino, when we talk about a young fino, we talk about 3 years under the yeast. For an old fino, we're talking about 7 years under the yeast. But our fino is between 10 and 12 years old. For that reason, the wine is not that pale. The mountains here in Grazalema. The variety of the goat is called payoyo, and the cheese as well is payoyo cheese. Then the other cheese is sheep cheese. That one is more spicy. The variety is called pinto. And then you also have some caña de lomo, some almonds, and some picos.
Quello che stavo spiegando prima è proprio questa cosa dell'invecchiamento. Vedete che c'è scritto 30 anni con VORS, che è la certificazione dell'invecchiamento dello sherry, vino Optimum Wors Signatum, e questo quindi ha 30 anni certificato. Wow, il Pedro Jimenez è inchiostro.
Yeah, with oloroso. On the right side, you have Charles IV, and next to him, Marilisa de Parma, his wife. Goya did not like the Photoshop.
Questa è la più grande collezione privata di quadri famosi d'arte di Spagna e appartiene ai proprietari di Bodegas Tradicion. Quindi ci hanno dato il nostro bicchiere di Pedro Jimenez e ci fanno passeggiare per osservare questi dipinti.
Visit theitalianwinegirl.com for more. Follow, watch, listen, enjoy.